what you play will vary depending on where you are on the table. Like you got to be thinking completely differently depending on what chair you're in there. What was your last big win, just out of interest?
So live, it was a Triton event in London for £1.3 million.
When?
Got him. It's like a year ago, but I didn't play for a year before that, and I haven't played live since then, pretty much. And then I just played the online series, and I had 4 six-figure scores in a month or so. So
you do seem to turn up, win, and leave.
And fuck off.
Yeah, and be like, I've got enough cash for another year. I'll see you later.
It's actually funny though. There'll be a few poker players watching this who will be quite derisive at the thought of me being one of the best poker players in the world, because the way that I play poker is so different to the way that almost every other high-stakes professional poker player plays poker.
Can you explain how?
So they would argue that to play at the highest levels, you need to be studying the solvers, which is the artificial intelligence. They would say you need to study game theory, and then only can you deviate from that when you have enough information to deviate from it.
Why would you, okay, how could you do that? How could you deviate from information?
So for instance, if the solver is saying with this hand in this position, you have to be calling their bet about 33% of the time.
So just to be clear to anyone at home, the solver is basically the thing that tells you what the right thing to do, or the best thing to do.
The game theoretically optimal.
It is so funny because, once again, going back to my boxing training, my boxing coach says, in order to break the rules, you have to know the rules. And that feels like kind of what you're getting at here, is you have to know a lot before you can start deviating at that point.
That's what other people say, actually.
Yeah.
And so that, in my opinion, is actually a bit of a mishap of the brain. I think there's a bit of a mass delusion happening across the whole poker community, where in their minds, it would be almost impossible for somebody like me to be profitable in the higher stakes. So when I do turn up and win pretty much all the time at the moment, which I'm sure is a lot of luck involved, but I do feel like I'm outplaying people in a lot of different situations. They would say it's just luck. They would say, oh, there's no chance because he hasn't studied this, he hasn't learned this. But the way that I teach poker, and I think is more important, is to really fine-tune intuition. And this involves meditation. I actually did a masterclass on spirituality just for this, not just for poker, but for other things as well. And it would be meditation, nutrition, it would be different ways of thinking, different ways of learning about yourself, so then you can tap into that intuition, that little spark of creativity that every single one of us has. And anybody, not just a poker player, anybody who's a fighter or anybody who's a gamer knows what it feels like to be on the A game. You're not in the same league anymore. You know, you might be against someone else, and you're like playing the other person like they're a fucking instrument. You know, you're just in tune with something, and it doesn't feel like you're you anymore. You're just flowing. You're part of the experience. And if you watch someone like Conor McGregor when he's fighting, I really see somebody who's in flow state. So what I try and teach people is learn poker, learn the rationality behind it, learn the theory, learn the mathematics, learn the psychology. Definitely a huge part of my game is psychology and live reads and things like that, which most of the poker community do not pay attention to. But really focus on what it feels like to be in your flow state, to be on your A game, and then focus on how to maintain that. Because if you can be the person who, when they're playing or when they're fighting or when they're competing in esports, for instance, is always on their A game, and other people are, they're getting emotional, somebody sent them a text, they're in a bad mood and they're tilting, or they didn't get enough sleep, or they're literally made out of McDonald's, then it's going to be pretty hard for them to be competing with somebody who's made out of green tea and apples and stuff, and then really aligned with themselves.
I totally resonate with that, as like just as a creator, even in everything that I'm trying to do in my life at the minute, learning so many different things. Like when people bring bad energy into your life, you're like, fucking get out with that, you know what I mean? But
if you're enjoying the way that I'm speaking about poker, teaching poker, I do have a website, charliecarrel.com. Link is in the description below. You'll find on there a mindset masterclass, which I think is the most important, teaching you how to deal with tilt, anxieties, ambition, things like that. You'll find a poker masterclass completely teaching you how to restructure the way that you think about poker. And you'll find a complete archive of the bankroll challenge.